welcome to Your Best Life. We are so blessed this evening to be able to go through and have an amazing show for you. But I want to remind you that you can also view this television viewing tonight on Zingo TV on channels 250 and 251. You can also view us on Roku Fire Sticks, Amazon Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. So every now and then we get to have folks on this show that are living the example of moving their life forward and living their best life. And so this evening, and I'm not going to screw her last name up, so I'm going to have her enunciate it again because I want to make sure I get this. So Laura. Lacurezeanu. I'm learning. Thank you. And so thank you for joining us tonight. Laura and her husband are here this evening, and here's what's beautiful. We get introduced through different communities. And so we have been associated to other, I'll say, self-help and life improvement, life enhancement environments where people are raising their standards. And as you know, Your Best Life is all about us connecting and being together with people that are elevating themselves. So Laura, can you tell us a little bit about your adventure previously before your current occupation as to where you were spending most of your time in your professional career?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Jeff.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for being here.
It's really a pleasure to be here. I actually started my career in consulting, and I spent majority of my professional career working in business strategy in various large corporations.
Beautiful, beautiful. So you definitely knew what organizational charts look like. Yes. SOPs, everyone, you know what that stands for. Standard operating procedures and KPIs. So these key performance indicators. And Your Best Life is all about business as well as faith, family, fitness, and finance. So what made you decide to leave corporate enterprise and consulting, because it sounds like a pretty lucrative gig.
It was.
It was. Let's see, she's not shy. And to go ahead and start to create even more of your own narrative and find the freedom that comes along with being an entrepreneur.
I actually did that multiple times across my years in professional world. Probably 3 times, if
wow.
if I count. Initially, I left also to be an entrepreneur back in 2009.
Okay.
Actually, that was my first experience together with Dan, my husband. We started a tech company, a SaaS company, before the market was there, and it was such an adventure, such a great experience. We learned so much. We sold that company, and then I actually went back into the corporate world because I was asked to go build a whole unit for a new business, and it was exciting, and I got to bring my strategy experience as well as my entrepreneurial experience.
That's outstanding.
And then I went to do my MBA. After that, I got offered another corporate role, even though I was thinking I would go back to entrepreneurship. But I was offered to go and work for Microsoft. And at that time, Microsoft was going through all the changes and really blossoming again. And I thought it's a great opportunity to learn again.
Wow.
And only after that, I went back into entrepreneurship. So if you think about it, for me, it wasn't a linear decision. It was always back and forth because I wanted to find the right way to express myself and to achieve my objectives, and to also have the right level of impact. Because, you know, through corporations, especially the large ones that I've worked for, you have an opportunity to impact at a different scale than you do when you're in a startup.
No, that's very true. I mean, being able to have capacity, and I know that some people find this to be kind of a cliche term, but the platform, because there's clout and credibility that comes with that kind of venue. Exactly. And then on the other side, there's also a little bit of inhibition that, because you have the name of that powerhouse behind you, and then yet there's this individuality that people are seeking. And at least that's what I've found in my stint with corporate America, that there's this desire to move beyond just someone else's, I'll say, frame or cloud of control. And you're like going, it's an entrepreneur thing. I get to make some decisions. And you get to experience them, but actually lead from the front and not always just from the middle.
Exactly. Well, I think it depends a lot on the culture of the company, because in some corporations you get to do that as well, but have the backup, the financial backup of the corporation to go and experiment with.
That helps.
Which it does. It does. Whereas when you're bootstrapping or when you're just starting,
Yes.
It's a different experience and a different set of challenges that you need to deal with.
It is, but I also feel that isn't there that appreciation when you're in a startup that you're learning all the modalities of the company. So
Yes.
from basically, as I say, from the outhouse to the penthouse, it's like you kind of get all the modalities of what's involved. And there's also a level of appreciation. As they say, it's wonderful when you get to be a commander or an admiral. That's different when you're a foot soldier. And so it's like, and I really do believe we need all of those experiences.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And actually, what I left to do most recently is exactly in this direction, because even when in Microsoft, I was seeing a lot of people reaching out to me asking for coaching.
Yes.
And many of them, while working together, realized that working in a corporation was not what was making them happy. So I ended up working with them to get outside of the corporate world and actually start their own ventures.
Okay.
And eventually, because I was doing that so much for free, just because I wanted to help them, I ended up after UPW doing that more professionally. And that's how everything started.
Wow.
Most recently as well.
And isn't it interesting where we find the inspiration from? To be able to move outside of our comfort zone.
Yes.
And there's all these sayings that everything you need and desires on the other side of fear. And that what you really need to be doing is the things that you're not taking action on now. You know, it's like the things you want to do the least are what's going to give you the most growth. And
absolutely.
Going, oh, why does it always have to be this yin and yang? And it's like, because that's the way the universe sets us up.
Exactly. Actually, you know, I was sharing this with our common friend Amanda recently. I was telling her that for my birthday, which was a few weeks back, I received one of the most interesting birthday wishes that I have ever received from a very dear friend. And instead of wishing just joy and happiness and fulfillment, he wished that I would have a chance to experience the challenges that I need to grow. And I thought, wow, that's a very thoughtful wish. I've never
and darn you at the same time. It's
but
like,
that's exactly what
yes.
you need, because without them, you're not able to get beyond the fear that you were referring to.
Well, they're the largest growth opportunities. And for sure, that's one of the things that I believe, and it's a strong belief system, that there's a lot of people who are erring on the side of comfort.
Yes.
And it's a really strange paradox, because those that are in comfort don't even know that they're drowning.
Yes.
And what they're looking for is energy. They're looking for charge. They're looking for emotion.
Yes.
And all emotion is energy in motion. That's the formulation.
Yes.
So when you made these decisions to start helping empower people to find their voice, how did that make you feel?
I'll tell you a story.
Please. We love stories.
So the feeling, the first time I had that feeling was actually when I ran this huge event that we started from scratch, where we brought 160 girls from 16 countries.
Wow.
To educate them about conscious AI. This was back in 2017. And one of the girls, they were all between 13 and 17, because studies were showing back then that that's the perfect age to inspire them, give them role models,
yes.
and also guide them in their career decisions. So at that time, one of the girls from Ukraine came to me, and she had actually written a card she had brought from Ukraine, interestingly. And she told me that she couldn't be more grateful for being there, because she never realized that she could have a say in how AI gets created.
Yes.
And she never realized that she could be involved in the world of technology, because she never thought a girl could do that. But the whole event was around how women and girls in that case needed to have a voice. So her sharing that with me made me have that feeling for the first time, and realizing how important it is for people to, number one, get the right role models, but also number two, have the opportunity to discover that path that they should be going down on, and have the courage to pursue it. Because oftentimes, you know, back down there, we feel the path that we should go on, but oftentimes we don't, because of all the limitations, all the limiting beliefs, all the difficulties that we anticipate we will be facing. Sure. And we choose not to go down.
It's a strange paradox. Not feeling worthy, or feeling like we have the capacity. There's a tendency for people to get stuck in busy.
Yes.
So the doings versus being. Yes. And we have a family motto that we've espoused to all of our children since they were very, very young. And that is, you can be doing your best, but never being your best. When you're being your best, whatever that looks like on that day, you'll be doing your best. And it seems like the dog bit Johnny, Johnny bit the dog. Chronology matters. Yeah. And it definitely creates the narrative of the story of how we live our lives. But I loved what you said is conscious AI. And isn't it interesting? We had the privilege of seeing a movie a couple of weekends ago called The Creator. If you haven't seen it yet, no, it is literally about the blending of artificial intelligence and human life. So I won't spoil it for you. We're pretty avid moviegoers, and this is the first time I can remember probably having lost maybe 1.5 gallons, 2 pounds of body weight simply from crying from this movie. Really? I blame allergies. I do. Edward, don't judge me. He's our executive producer, by the way. He's a brilliant man, but don't.
We love you.
So, and so I go there for a reason, and that was, we oftentimes look at intelligence quotient or IQ, and that the narrative EQ, the emotional quotient, doesn't run in parallel, especially when we start talking about mechanistic ideology or logistical mindset. After studying NLP and neuroscience conditioning for the last 30 years, most notably 22 years with the big guy, you know who I'm talking about. He's very tall, big teeth, big hands. Huge human being. So he's a remarkable person. And what's amazing though is that everything that we notice as humans is based on emotion. This was the first time that I had experienced seeing, and of course they were actors, however, where mechanistic beings could actually emote this level of emotion and move people. And it was like, okay, this is a game changer, because ostensibly of ChatGPT 4.0, and by 2025, we'll have 100% of the IQ ratio coefficient of intelligence. Yes. So it's 100-fold, basically doubled. By 2050, it's 1,000 times. And there was a philosophical question that was proffered. And I'd love to know your mindset on this. And that is, what does a human care about an ant?
What does a human care
about a single ant?
Wow, I didn't realize we were going to go into this kind of conversations.
It's YBL. And the reason why I ask this is that it's a philosophical discussion. Yes. About the sanctity of life. So with a Japanese mom and an Irish father, I grew up with two different ideologies around, I'll say, religion and belief systems. The sanctity of life, though, is universal in all religions. So yet I have done my fair share, and I apologize to the universe for this, of dispatching ants in Texas because they're fire ants. And when they sting you, you remember.
I've heard.
Yes. So I won't say I have a vendetta. I'll just say I have become the Terminator. And so when I ask the question, I'm like, I'm not pointing fingers at you because there's 9 pointing back at me. But it would be interesting coming with your background, how you feel about that.
So I think there's a couple things that will play an important role in this. One of them is just like with children, you know, how we raise children is how we raise AI.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why back then we wanted to bring more women into the game, because we realized at that time that there was too much of a masculine angle into coding AI, and the way that it was interacting was too much on the masculine energy, masculine approach, and we needed to balance it out. So that's one of the factors. So if you think about AI as a child, then the way we interact with it now is going to somehow prepare the model and the way it will react towards the ant or towards other things.
Love it. It's true. It is true. There have been ideologies around this right now where they're saying that they would like to start calling for world sensitivity days in regards to the input that is being prompted and the prompts into ChatGPT.
Yes.
And that if we raise it like a child with empathy, compassion, collaboration, that it will use that as the baseline platform for its interface with humankind.
And I know that, you know, many people will say, well, it's just a piece of code. And it is a piece of code, but it's a self-learning piece of code. So at the end of the day, it will learn based on the input that it receives. And if the input is tilted towards a different or a specific approach or a specific behavior, then it'll build more in that direction versus the other one.
Well, and there's another aspect to this too, which is if we start to think of energetic engagement and frequencies, that studies that were done in Japan around water and the sensitivity that it has around positive, and I won't use necessarily the term negative, but I'll say challenging emotions, that if something that's living as water can have an adverse reaction as well as having an adulated reaction to the positive, that what does that do to life forces? And as we start to blend ecologies, Elon Musk is already working on this with human augmentation. And yet there's this underlying fear that I get concerned of. And that is because, as we know, where focus goes, energy flows. So if we're trying to constantly move away from something, i.e. fear of sentient connectivity of an AI enterprise, if we will, Skynet, you know, the Terminator, and yet there's this other side to it, which is what are all the modalities that go along with all the enhancements of life, the sensory motor skill, the coordination, the aptitude. True story, we have our eldest son was pre-med student, and he's getting ready to graduate this December. He's a biochem major and a comp sci minor.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. We're very proud of him, and we love you, Cole. It's recorded, so yes, you know, we love you very much. We're very proud of you. Here's what's interesting, though. We were convinced that the last 4 years he was going to be a physician. So was he, till we talked him out of it. And people go, why would you do that?
Yes.
For a couple reasons. Right now, the AI attributes of what's being replaced in medical is happening at such a rapid pace that for him to spend the next 12 years in education to potentially become a physician, we have asked and said, would it be more interesting to you to be on the technical side of this, which is nano, robot, surgical, creativity, biological, biochemical interfaces? Because we know that all emotions are stored cellularly in the body. So if we can start to tap into these modalities, and it's like, isn't that really where the intelligence quotient's going? And the opportunity could be created. And he got really excited about that. And so part of it is trying to be, I won't say prognosticating the future, but being present to now and looking at the growth ratio. So your son, who's 8?
8.
So we have 3, a 23 and a 20 and a 16-year-old. they're all going on 50 at this point. They all think
Yes.
that they're our age and ready to rock and roll and just take on life, which is beautiful. And then there's this other side too, which is I was reminded that the information that Cole learned as a freshman in college at a pretty prestigious university, now that he's graduating, is already antiquated.
Yeah.
So in a 3-year period of time, and I was like, going, holy smokes. At least it took a couple years for me to get out of graduate school for it to have kind of passed us by, but it's happening at such a rapid pace.
It is.
So what would you say to folks who are looking to make sure that they're not outmoded in the tsunami of information that's coming?
Actually, there was a study that was released a couple of years ago, even before ChatGPT took over the whole entire
narrative.
Yes. That was talking about the impact of AI in the workforce and how there will definitely be a significant number of jobs that will no longer need to exist.
Yes.
Because of the impact that AI will have. But that on the same side, or at the same time, there will be just as many, if not more, jobs being created.
Yes.
Because it's just a different way of working. It doesn't mean that we will no longer need doctors or that we will no longer need writers. We will, but in a different way, either to train the AI or to use the AI or to explain the AI to other people who are going to use it. So there will definitely continue to be demand for probably every single area of work we have today, if not more, but in a different way. And that's probably why the reskilling is so important. Or in the case of your son and in the case of mine as well, it's about anticipating and skilling the right way to begin with.
Absolutely. I mean, my wife has been adamant that, yes, it would be brilliant for him to still become a physician. He has the aptitude for it. In fact, all 3 of our kids do. I believe the difference is this, and this is something that it becomes somewhat a moral dilemma. Oftentimes we're told, follow your passions, do what you're passionate about. And I go, okay, from a behavioral sciences standpoint, how did you develop a passion? And they go, well, I put a lot of time and effort, and it was something I had an interest in. They go, but that's different. You cultivated skill. You amalgamated a lot of different modalities and distinctions and blendings of ecologies. So you developed an aptitude. And when you start to put in enough time, it's like, ooh, I'm passionate about this. So I don't know that most people start with passion, because I honestly don't believe that most people know what their passion is. Yet it's such a cliche that people do what you love.
Yes. Actually, I've got quite a bit to say about this, because a lot of the work that I do now and that I've done for the last few years has to do with this. Many times people would come to me and ask me, what can I do if I go outside of the corporate world? I don't know what to do. And I don't know what monetizable skills I have. And I have no passions that can make me money. So how can I get by? And not everybody wants to become an entrepreneur and raise funding and, go the traditional route. Some people just want to be a solopreneur and just offer services or be a coach, but they don't know how to figure that out. And oftentimes it's not just follow your passion and go sell that, because it's not so easy to monetize it.
Yes.
But I genuinely believe that there is a good way to monetize whatever skill you're willing to put time and effort into developing and perfecting and mastering, so that you can truly add value to whoever you're serving.
That is a key facet. We were having a discussion earlier today, the difference between skill and experience. And I love that skill can be acquired, that we can amass copious amounts of skill, provided we put in the intensity, the effort, and the presence. That's something that's so huge when we're engaging. There's the other side of it, which is putting into practice what we preach. So I know a lot of folks that are great at hyperbole. They're great at quoting someone else's labor and giving opinion, which is lovely. And yet I choose to surround myself with mentor strategists. It's something that within our community we've propagated. We're like, no, that's great. You have credentials and pedigree, we're looking for experience. I'm actually looking for, and they go, well, time on this earth. I said, well, that's not a terrible thing. However, it's not chronological. It has more to do with your dedication to your craft and how far outside the bubble you've been willing to travel as well, so that you get to see some contrast and have experienced that. And they go, oh, you're just looking for perfect. I said, no, I'm looking for battle scars. I'm actually looking for folks that have gone through it. And they said, oh, well, you seem very religious. I said, no, religion is for people who are trying to avoid hell. I'm spiritual. I've already lived through several hells. So that is something that changes the narrative. And that's one of the things I find that's so just beautiful about you and Dan, is that you've lived this lifestyle, you've experienced it, and you walk the talk. So it's more than just going, oh, well, I've heard. Well, the theory is, and I was like, going, I don't want to speak in theory. Let's talk in practicum.
And the truth is that until you practice, you cannot, and I know it's said too often, but you cannot preach because you haven't seen all the difficulties that whoever you're teaching is going to go through. Absolutely. And the results they will achieve will not be as expected because you cannot prepare them properly.
No, you can't. And that is something that I find all too often starts to become part of this softening. People, I really do believe that most people desire to be mentored. And then there's this strange paradox that started to occur where if you look at my parents as an example, the IBM generation, where you're like, oh, you work 45 years for a company, you get a gold watch and a pension.
Yes.
You know, and it's like, great. You're still driving around your 1978 Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Not so great, but it's okay because you have a comfortable retirement. And I know the word comfortable to me is like so off-putting. I cringe. Thank you for that. Did you see that too? I felt it. I was like going, because there's no growth in comfort.
And there's no comfort in having a full-time job and no backup.
No, especially in today's world.
Exactly. The last 2 years have proven it.
Well, and how many people have a side hustle?
Yes. Or more people should have a side hustle, if you ask me.
I agree. This is where that narrative of interest level becomes very exciting. There's so many people who are chasing the science of success. They go, just tell me, give me the answer. You know, show me. And it's like, I'll do everything you tell me to do. It's like, you're not getting it. We can lead the horse to water. Getting them to drink is a completely different premise. Yeah. And then I go, oh, well, I like my water flavored. Okay, is this decaf? You know, you're like going, for the love of Pete, really? And this is the narrative, though, because we actually, yes, and we live in somewhat a concierge world.
Yes, we do. On the YouTube channel that I started, because I wanted to help people find ways to monetize their skills, I've been talking for the last 3.5 years about probably hundreds at this point, ways that they can monetize literally any skill, any experience, any craft that they've developed. There are so many ways. And yet, to this day, people still ask me, does this work for me? Or has anybody else tried it? Because I don't want to put an effort into trying it.
And that is the barrier. Yes. It's like, what are you so scared of? I'm surprised you're able to walk. Because if no one was putting a pillow in front of you every time you got a little wobbly, I'm like, did your mom and dad wrap you in bubble tape? Like, what? How was your existence? I know my kids, they have scars. I mean, legitimately. And I don't know how my generation survived. I really don't. They're like, oh, well, you people were just nuts. And I was like going, yes, pre-airbags. Pre 3-point seatbelts, you know, it's like there's a strap across your lap, live with it. My parents had a what was it called, a Buick sports wagon. It literally had a trundle seat in the back. You sat backwards with no seatbelt. I'm still here to tell the tale. And so this is where it gets crazy, though, because people are going, whoa, that's irresponsible.
And you know what's even more interesting? Because after making all these videos where I show them step by step, literally, you go here, you click there, you do that, and they still don't do it. So in one of the videos, I said, I'm going to do it live with you. I will show you that it works. And I did it. I recorded the whole thing. For privacy reasons, I couldn't put some pieces in the video, but I literally showed them everything and I wrote everything down. And still people come and say, oh no, that doesn't work, or it can't work. Well, I showed you that it does. You just need to put in a little bit of effort. That's it. Just want it a bit more.
And you hit the nail on the head just now. And that is, skill can be taught. Desire and drive need to be stoked.
Yeah.
And that is the one thing I'm finding so deceptive for some, and for others, it's innate. They just have this desire to, and it's not to be more, it's to be different. Yes. And yes, I love this. It's so inspiring to see your acknowledgments of these concepts. We discuss this all the time. We're like, well, there's no such thing as better. It's just different. And in different, there's no judgment. Because if I say I'm going to do better, well, then did everything I do before suck? Like, was it like not even germane to the conversation? Was it so marginalized and menial that I can only go up from here? Yet if I say I'm looking for different, well, gosh, that seems inquisitive. In fact, that seems downright conscientious. Why wouldn't I want to be more motivated by something different? Because now there's no judgment either.
Exactly. And I think you were talking about how some people have that naturally and some people need to develop the drive and the motivation. And it's interesting because Dan and I talked about this multiple times. It's something that we found ourselves to have naturally, but I don't think it was something we were necessarily born with. It's just the culture that we grew up in somehow helped develop that drive and that motivation a lot earlier. Mm-hmm. Because we were both born in Romania. So coming from an Eastern European, post-communist country, you feel like if you want to live a good life and a different life, like you were saying, you need to have that drive, that motivation to go after things that you're wishing for yourself and for your family in the future. And it sort of becomes almost natural to have that motivation, even though you probably don't, you're not born with it.
No, I do believe culturally that there are environments that propagate it. If you look at many of the cultures, Asian cultures, Eastern European cultures, the discipline factor, there's like they always used to say when I was a kid growing up, oh, you'll get along with Germans, Romanians, anyone who comes from a very strict culture that has a lot of steeped in history. Because Japanese culture is that way. And so discipline was never lacking. My dad was in the military for 30 years. My mother was a teacher in Japan. The answer is yes. Like what? Yeah, to everything. Grades, discipline. You're right. And so there's a part of this where people go, oh, you have really high standards. I feel so blessed that these standards were instilled with us from a young age. It created a sense of drive. And it wasn't out of desperation. It was actually out of, I'll say, knowing that there was always this stable sense of security behind you that would help motivate you. There are still some days I go, oh, do I have what it takes? And then my wife will say something to me or my children, and it's amazing where you get inspiration from. And they'll remind you and go, well, you have some challenges today. Well, don't you always pray for better challenges? I said, yes, all the time, twice on Sundays. And it really is one of those things where now I look back and go, what are all these blessings that were bestowed on me? And yes, there's little battle wounds and scars and scrapes, and it's like, but that's character building. And these are those stories and the narratives that we get to share with people. It's like, oh, I read in a book that this happens to other people. Let me tell you, I walked uphill in the snow barefoot both ways. Like, how's that even possible? It's a tall mountain. Slid down the backside, started all over again. And why do I go there? I don't need to justify any of it because I've lived it. And there's something to be said about the sense of security and that drive that you go, there's always another level. There's always another layer. It's like a growing onion.
And probably even more to that is, you know, that there's always a way after you keep going through so many layers of the onion that you were talking about. You know that you can push through whatever comes, and you don't look at challenges the same way. You just see them as a new opportunity to get to the next level.
And age and experience have taught me that we can flow through as well. It has been probably one of the deepest learnings, that I don't always have to battle. That sometimes if I slow down and listen, it's like when I'm looking for the salt. I'm like, honey, I can't find the salt. She's like, it's right there. It's right in front of you. And I'm like, I can't see the salt. She'll come out here, close your eyes, go back in. Oh, there it is.
Yes.
Wait, what? It was like literally right in front of my face. Sometimes the lesson is slowing down. We can get so caught in process. We can get so caught in measurement. And there are times when we're so desperate to measure something that we'll move it. And we'll move it in the wrong direction. Not because we intentionally meant to. Just, you can't measure what's not moving. So we'll do things that actually, I'll use the big guy's theory of the 72-degree person. You'll burn the furniture, the wood, everything to get to 72 degrees. Then you get to 72 degrees, and you start opening windows. You did everything that you used, all these resources, all this fuel, all this effort. It's getting too hot. You know, you're at 72.1 degrees, and that 0.1 means you're too hot. Might have to open the door too. No, you're releasing all this energy out now and then squandering it. It's like, what if you just slowed down a little bit and got to enjoy? And then you didn't have to burn anything else for a while, because now it was self-perpetuating.
And you would adjust to it, because this is what happens many times. And even in the corporate world was something I would see a lot with people working themselves, you know, and burning themselves out to get to a certain level. And then once they got there, they realized, first of all, it's not what they were expecting it would be. And second of all, they didn't have any time to enjoy the journey. So
Science of success, no art to fulfillment. So we have this saying that's kind of fun. We say that a lot of folks, when you're learning, you're faking it till you make it. You're just copying other people. And it's like, okay, you're running a behavioral adoption program because it's an opportunity. So you're like, ooh, they're a really good football player, i.e. soccer. If I do what they do, I'll probably get better. And you may, depending on your aptitude and skill, your distinctions, and your work ethic. Then all of a sudden you start to, I'll say, face it till you make it. You're going, ooh, competition. I used to be a lot faster than all these guys. Now all of a sudden they're all catching up to me. So we face the challenge, and that builds character. And it's no different than a diamond. Enough pressure, enough time, you start to see those that you're like, ooh, that's a gem over there. I can see the talent. And then we get to this point where we faith it as we make it, that we know. And the skill, the aptitude starts to bubble up, and you're like, what? Oh, I'm really having fun now, and I'm passionate about it. And then we get to this beautiful euphoric state of believing as we achieve. And that everything you need is within you now, that every possibility is an option, just sometimes it hasn't been seen yet. And that when we surround ourselves with the right people, now we have accountability, and you're not just like-minded. Because I believe that most masterminds propagate people drawing into a space because they're like, yeah, I heard these really cool concepts. And, oh, I thought it was interesting. Oh, I saw that too. You saw it? And then we get to a point where you get to know someone and you see the alignment of values. It's like, ooh, now we're like-hearted. This shifts the narrative because there's a level of trust that we didn't necessarily have before. And someone asked me, they said, how do you know when you're in that space? I said, you won't feel judged. You give permission openly for someone else because you know anything that they say is going to be done out of love and compassion, and that they understand your values. They understand your visions, not your dreams. Dreams come from outside of you. Visions come from within you. And you get to propagate that. I go, ooh, I like that. I actually got goosies talking about that. Because it's something that when you teach your children how to create vision boards, when you teach your children how to envision, and I got so tired of people go, well, just dream about it. Just dream about it. And I go, Do you realize that the term dream is literally your visions that your body's detoxifying at night? And so it's actually alleviating and creating freedom and space for you to actually craft and create a mindset. Well, your mindset comes from your heart set. So this continuity that it's coming from outside of you, that's some ethereal thing. You know, I hope I'm going to have good dreams. I hope I'm going to have a great life. I go, well, hopium sucks. Okay. Don't do drugs. Hopium is an addictive drug that a lot of people have literally, glommed onto. And it's one of those scenarios where it's like, it's not healthy. Because what does hopium rely on? That someone's going to give it to you.
That it's going to come from outside.
Well, if you want to win the lotto, buy a freaking ticket. I've asked people, hey, what are you up to? Hey, going to win the lotto. Did you buy a ticket? Nope. Are you hoping someone's going to give you one of those too? Just do it, as Nike says. If you're going to get in the game, play the game. But don't hate the game and don't hate the player. Understand that you become the player that you need to be if you're in alignment with your vision and your outcomes.
And maybe one thing to add to what you were saying in terms of how do you know you're in the right space with these masterminds is, besides not being judged and never feeling like somebody's judging you, is also, at least for me, it always feels like they're adding to whatever I'm thinking, feeling, believing. Every conversation feels like it's enriching, it's helping me grow rather than making me question things the wrong way.
That's beautiful. No, absolutely. There's times when you'll be in a space where the energetic connection isn't as clean as one would hope it would be. And then, at least in the past, I found myself trying to justify, like, do I deserve to be here? Like, am I around the right people? Is this where I'm supposed to be right now? And the only time that's ever happened is when I let my energy drop, or when I dimmed my light. I actually reserved myself. And there's a difference between slowing down and listening, because the universe gave you two of these and one of these, by comparison to having to be the one who is the one prognosticating all the information all the time. And I go, I like high quality questions, because it really emotes and allows you the ability to connect. And as H.E.R. said, no one cares what you have to say until they know how much you care.
So true.
It really makes such a big difference.
And this kind of conversations and the type of questions that you're mentioning, they just give you a different perspective over things, which is many times exactly what you need, that different lens to look through.
It does. I found for the longest time, I didn't acknowledge myself as being a neurostrategist. And it was like, oh, well, you know, you're a volunteer trainer, or you're a coach, or you're a practitioner. It's like, no, I've actually studied this stuff for 3 decades. And what I found was I've been applying it regularly ever since. So it's not something that was just hyperbole or hypothecated. It was more, let's go ahead and connect. And I started finding that I found my voice when I actually asked questions. Because as much as everyone in this room might not believe it, but my wife knows very well. Growing up, I was extremely shy, extremely. And I really, thank God the universe blessed me with this woman, because she's the 3rd woman I ever dated, ever. I was not good at it. And so I share this not out of any kind of embarrassment to self or being self-deprecating. I say it is anyone can shift when you find your true voice. And now I'm proud to be a husband. I'm proud to be a father. I'm proud to be an entrepreneur and someone that gets to interview beautiful, amazing souls. This is how the world gets better. We get to share our knowledge, and sharing is caring.
It is, and thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. For everyone, please, if you have a chance, check out our episode. We're going to go ahead and we'll be providing Laura's links so that you can see her in her element, in all of her grace and all her skill, on YouTube as well as other venues. And come check us out, because we are having actually Laura and her husband back for the speaker spotlight as well. So for all my YBL family members. So check us out on Spanglish World Network. This is where you come to learn, read, digest, live it, love it, learn it. God bless you. We appreciate your time. Laura, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us. And traveling all the way across the pond.
Okay.
And Dan, thank
It's
you
a
as
pleasure.
well. And my lovely wife. Thank you, sweetheart. God bless everyone. We look forward to seeing you soon.